get me? In the garage with Phonetix and BrainZ.
Yes, easy, bro.
Good to see you, mate. Before we go any further, just remind me going forward, I've got to do a festive edition of the jingle for the next episode.
I
was thinking get a few sparkly jingly bells and some tubular bells going in the background or something just to Christmas it out.
I can hear it already. It's going to be phenomenal. Anyway, I am BrainZ live from the BrainZ Cave.
I am Phonetix in my brand new studio over here. Moved out of Gotham City for this one.
Very snazzy. I'm loving the guitars on the wall. There's no trumpets though, mate. Where's the trumpets?
There's no trumpets. Yeah. No, they're in a box under the desk. I'm yet to unpack, but we'll get there. How you doing, man? What's new? You seen any new garage DJ themed OnlyFans springing up recently?
No, not yet. I don't hunt them down. I didn't realise there was a
lies.
A plethora. As if I've got money to waste on OnlyFans, I've got to spend it all on tunes, mate. God.
For sure. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know who's got the money to be paying people for. That's a gassing topic for another time, I think.
Yeah, completely. Garage and OnlyFans, where does the intersection happen? Oh my God. Yeah, windy, lots of wind. God, blimey.
It's been mad.
Yeah, went everywhere yesterday. Yeah. But typical British weather thing, right?
You know you're getting old when you're moaning about the wind.
Well, it was just, it turned out my ass was going to come down yesterday. Anyway, it's been a banging month for music as always. Phenomenal tunes coming out. I reckon we should just jump into it, mate. What do you reckon?
Yeah, agreed. I had the same battle as always, trying to whittle it down, but got there. So let's kick it off. And let's be totally shameless and start with one of my own because why would I not? So I'll introduce it, I'll let it play, and then I'm going to have to just let you do the talking on it because otherwise I'm going to sound like a right prick sitting there bigging myself up, aren't I?
That sounds kind of backwards on it, but let's go for it. All right, introductions away then, mate.
This is a tune by myself and Laura Alice, which is available now on Nuvolve. It's called Be Okay.
Love. I could bop to that one all the way to the end if I
was very much enjoying your head bopping, mate. I like the kind of side to side ones. That's my favourite of the bunch.
That's why that's the Saturday Night Live thing, isn't it? What is love? Anyway, mate, I love. So you've collabed with Laura Alice. You can hear there's definitely a little bit of a different spin to the usual vibe you're bringing. I'll be completely honest. This song's been keeping me going. Let me explain. When I've been stressing out, literally in my head, I'll start hearing "It's gonna be okay." That's no lie. Literally, it's been kind of keeping me going when shit's been getting a bit grim for me recently.
Man, I'm so pleased to hear that.
I know it's a bit of a random one. That's not me just blowing smoke out your ass. Legit. It sticks in your head quite clearly. You know what I mean? Great work, mate. Great work. You and Laura brought it to the table on this one.
I'm glad you identified that because obviously it was we did the track a while back now, and obviously the vocal hook and the ethos of the tune was specifically that because we were coming off the tail end of the lockdown and everything. Do you know what I mean? And it's just been a really shit couple of years, isn't it? And it was let's do a tune that's just look, it's going to be okay. And so actually to hear you say that warms my heart, mate. Warms my heart. It's all good.
How's it been received so far?
It's been a bit of a mixed bag, actually. That was one of the things when I kind of shortlisted it. I was like, it's definitely an interesting conversation to have. I mean, early on, got to big up the BBC because they picked it up. It's a funny one, actually, because Laura and I were talking about submitting it for introducing, and Laura's had a lot of support this year from introducing, and I sort of said, you don't leave it too late because obviously stuff takes a while to work its way through the system because I know in the past when I've uploaded things, the stuff takes, maybe a couple of months, 2-3 months to kind of work its way through. The Laura preemptively did it over the summer, and the BBC immediately picked it up and started playing it. And then we were like, fuck, it's not coming out till November. So she kind of had to go to Nuvolve with her tail between her legs and go, really sorry, I fucked up. But luckily they were really cool about it, and they were just like, nah, all publicity is good publicity. So got to big up the BBC, because they Jaguar played it on the on Radio 1, and then props to her, because she then went and shortlisted it and basically sent out a message to the network, just being like, this is my tip going forward. So it basically just got spun up and down the country on the BBC network and all their little regional stations, which is fucking cool. I've not had that kind of level of support with anything via the BBC before, so that was nice. In terms of like the scene, as it were, I know you hate the phrase "the scene." Yeah, the support's been a bit kind of hit and miss. Like, certain people have got behind it. You know, I've seen you playing it, and obviously Impact's been spinning it, Merlin has, just the usual cats really. But like, in terms of like the upper echelon, some of the bigger names, it doesn't really seem to have turned the heads that we maybe anticipated that it might have done, because it's kind of got that feel good throwback vibe. But I don't know, maybe that's just in terms of topical, what's working right now, the bass heavy gritty stuff's kind of the in sound, right? So maybe it just kind of falls outside of that. Sales wise, I've seen it creeping up the Beatport chart, so it's presumably doing okay, which is good. I think it was 19 last time I checked. Can't grumble at that.
Happy days.
It's not number one though. Come on, guys.
You'll get there. I'm sure. I suppose it's weird. So have you been seeing a lot of that kind of bass heavy stuff? Is what's the main kind of focus at the moment then?
Seems to be. I mean, I did. I don't know if you saw. I actually name dropped you in that an interview me and Laura did with 909 Originals, and they were asking, if there was one specific sound that seemed to be kind of resonating with the ravers at the moment. And I think they also interviewed Scott Diaz, and he said pretty much exactly the same thing that we did, which was that, like, there's a lot of different avenues to garage at the minute. Obviously garage house is kind of popping off. I see like my kind of little jazz step niche is doing okay, and kind of has like a little tight fan base that are really into it. But like, in terms of the wider club scene and a lot of the stuff, I mean, admittedly, I'm not in clubs a lot myself these days. I'm too fucking old and tired to be doing that. But like when I do go to clubs, or if I do see videos on social media, the stuff that appears to be getting the people bopping is always the really wobbly, gritty, bass heavy 4/4, and it's almost it's stuff that I almost wouldn't put in the garage bracket. I hate that whole like, oh, this isn't garage thing. So I don't want to sound like that, but like it's kind of drawing quite heavily on the bass stuff. And I think AC Slater and Night Bass are at least in part responsible for that. To their credit, because fair play to them, is kind of mixing it up. I know we talked about Night Bass, right, some time ago, and we were discussing Culture by Hans Glader, and we were like, what's an American bass label doing putting a two-step tune out? And then off the back of that, like Oppidan, Badger, like there's just been a plethora of young talent from the UK that's kind of made garage that's kind of tailored to that sound, and it's shaping something a little bit different out of the scene. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just it's kind of taking garage off in a slightly different direction. It's interesting.
Well, I mean, I think that's why I call what I play now garage and bass. Like, I don't say I hate the phrase UK garage because it's global, but I always try and say garage and bass, and the bass part I always classify as that kind of more lengier sound. Just the what used to be called Northern, and then is obviously mutated into those kind of savage, lengy bass tunes. But they tear clubs off. It's like when you're out on a night out, you've had a few juices, and you've dropped a few through bumbles. When the big drop happens, that's going to set you off, isn't it? So I totally get it. For sure. And I only wish I was young enough to be living that life still nowadays.
I think from my perspective as such a diehard fan of the scene, I have no issue with that bass heavy stuff. And like you're absolutely spot on there, that like, especially some of the ones with the really big builds, and they've got the nasty gritty basses, when they do drop, they really kick. I think I'd like to see a bit more of a sort of a mixed bag. I think if I was playing out a bit more often, then I would be looking to kind of mix it up and have some of those, but then equally be trying to spin some of the soulful stuff in between them as like little fillers. Do you know what I mean? Because I think the thing that garage has to its benefit and as an advantage over other genres is that it is such a mixed bag, right? The garage umbrella is so vast that there are things that almost don't sound like they belong together, and it's almost only the tempo that kind of keeps stuff relevant to the scene. Do you know what I mean? But I love that because it stops things getting boring. And I think it's just a bit of a shame when you get the DJs or that go along and then kind of own in on the one particular sound. I mean, that's their prerogative. Fair play to them. I'm not going to criticize them for doing it. I just think it's a shame that as a result of that, brilliant music that doesn't necessarily fit within that small niche part of garage then gets overlooked. Do you know what I mean? So I'd like to see maybe this bass tear out stuff getting mixed up with some of these bumpy 4/4 vibes and some two steps. That would be in an ideal world, but maybe
I think I'd like to see a jazz step night where this stuff is intersecting with jazz step. That's where I think it would be a better cross section rather than going the other way to the more savage. And then you got a room full of connoisseurs, and it's just a different audience. Maybe I don't know. It's about just
for sure.
Who your audience is, right? Cracking stuff though, mate. Out on New Volve again, just smashing it up.
Appreciate the plug there, mate.
Well done. You know, and say.
And if you're wondering where you can get it, phonetix.co.uk will take you everywhere you need to go.
Hey, and big up Laura Alice as well.
Smashing it, mate.
Collabing.
We're jumping on there.
Yeah,
he's keen.
that was my earpiece just doing its own thing, so I apologise for that.
I assumed that was your first selection, and I was just like, oh shit, like he's just hit play and skipped on.
It is actually my first selection, and it's because tapping it makes it go play. I apologise for that. We're gonna go into the first selection. So this one's out on Garage Shared, and it's an artist out of Japan known as Kaio, and the track is called Ghost. Let's go for it. I mean, there's a lot going on there, right?
It's lovely.
The intro, it's like a little glitchy kind of Friday the 13th chop up of the sample as it drops into the next part. Smart, great stuff. It's very jazzy, piano, lovely. It's a nice combination of chilled sounds. So yeah, I've really enjoyed this one. It's probably been my favourite over the past month, and yeah, it's out on Garage Shared, and it's great get. Say Kaio straight out of Japan, and he's just been slowly bringing out more and more banging tunes, and this is kind of his pinnacle at the moment. So big up Kaio for this
big
one.
Up, Kaio. It's really beautiful. It's really I think you hit the nail on the head there. And there are certain things like those little glitchy bits and like the way that the vocals are chopped. There are tells that identify that that's a Japanese production, right? There are certain things that the Japanese producers have a tendency to do, and it's really nice to see that kind of interspliced into garage in the way they do it, because it's really distinctive. It's got a real nice way that it's put together. It's just a great track. It's really, goes back to what you were saying before when we talked about like the mature stuff. It's like a real grown-up take on garage, and I could sit there and I could listen to that all day. It just makes me feel good. It makes me feel all warm and fuzzy. I like it.
Is this on your jazz step list?
I'm pretty sure it is, but I am going to go and double check that after the show to make sure it's not one that fell by the wayside. I think I put it on there. If I didn't, I fucking should have, and I will do.
That's normally this one's on the Jazz Step list already.
I'm pretty sure it is. I'm pretty sure it is. It's nice to see Garage Shared picking up on that kind of thing as well. Big up Garage Shared, because that falls. I don't know if it's fair for me to say it falls slightly outside of what I would normally expect to hear from Garage Shared. It's like, I heard it and I was just like, I wasn't expecting that. And it was like a pleasant surprise. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. They do obviously high caliber two-step stuff and they support a lot of the southern artists. But they have been going out there and looking for talent kind of globally, and they've obviously snatched up Kyo for this one. But yeah, you're right. Stuff like coming from like Badger and Aduki, they're all kind of more traditional two-step and say high quality, not this just kind of, this is a more chilled, mature vibe like we've said. So yeah. Well,
they've got some jazz step out at the end of the week as well.
Really? I wonder who the artist is that's doing that one.
I'm not gonna be too shameless about it, but I would just say if you look on phonetix.co.uk, it would take you to where you need to go. That's becoming like a stock phrase for me. You haven't got a catchphrase. We need to get you one, mate.
I don't know. Just slowly crying can be my catchphrase this week. I don't know. Nice one, man. Do you want to introduce your next banger?
Well, hopefully my next tune will not make you cry too much. It's got a real nice feel-good vibe to it. So interesting that you mentioned actually about garage being global earlier, actually, because I've got 3 selections this week. One of them is obviously from right here at home. This one is straight out of New York, and I've got one from somewhere else later, which we'll go into. But straight out of New York, Matt Carey and, I don't know how you say this, Hien? Matt Carey and Hien with a track called Move to the City, and it's available now on Stay Bad.
Good love is hard to find. Suicide, you can't deny. Gotta try.
She's telling me to move to the city.
Okay, don't you wanna be with me?
Yeah, baby girl, but the shit's too nitty gritty.
Huh? You must be so lonely. Don't you wanna hold me?
And the bees, I got everything I'll ever need.
I'll take you downtown, show you around.
I'll change your life when you see how I get down.
You'll feel the raindrops on the rooftop.
Nice. Don't need no trouble from no New York City cop. I can buy it so bright.
We got parties every night.
See the stars in the sky.
Anything you wanna buy.
Feel the warm breeze blow.
Great find, mate. Great find.
How wicked is that? I mean, you're going to need to use your master tempo button to get it sped up because it's
definitely.
It's like 122, 123, but like the vibe is, it's spot on. It's got this. I don't know if you can hear now that it was synth bits.
Did you wanna hold me?
Those little synth bits just kind of made me think Disclosure immediately. Do you know what I mean? It's like they've taken some of the best bits of garage and fused it with a really, really kind of soulful chord progression. And it's just got a funky bass line, a wicked vocal, and then that little MC who kind of does a question and answer with the female. It's just all round, like the arrangement and everything's just really nice. I'm not sure, I don't know how well that would work in a club. Going back to what we were saying, I don't think it's really well suited to like your typical garage club night these days. But I know full well that when I'm doing a jazz step night, that's the kind of thing I'm going to be dropping in. Do you know what I mean? And it will fit beautifully amongst the kind of thing that I go for. And yes, before you ask, it went straight on the jazz step playlist.
Of course. Why would it not? I really was not expecting it, mate. Like the way that it dropped, it come out of nowhere for me.
Yeah.
I didn't know what was coming, and the fact that you said it was American as well, their sound can sometimes be a little bit different. Like they're kind of doing garage, but not really doing garage. So yeah. It caught me off guard, mate. Wicked selection. You've said a lot about it. The MC doing a bad Snoop Dogg is probably the only thing that I'm a bit.
Not sure about that.
To me. I feel like he's doing a bad Snoop Dogg.
It needs that little, I mean, it needs that little contrast to the female vocal for it to work, right? I feel like it's quite. Yeah, it's distinctive. It's got character. Well, I guess you're either going to like that or hate it. It's like a Marmite type thing. I quite enjoyed it, but equally, I can see the point you're making there.
Oh, I'm not saying I completely disliked it. I'm just saying it sounds like a bad Snoop Dogg. Yeah, but yeah, great find, mate. Great find. I'm definitely copying that one for my next show. Awesome stuff. Let's should we roll on to the next one?
The next one, indeed.
The next one is Marmite O'Clock. I suppose is the only way that. when I first heard this, I kind of messaged Rob and was like, "What is this piece of shit?" And it's really, really grown on me. So let's just play it and see how it goes, isn't it? This is the fresh one from Hans Glader. This track is entitled Autumn.
To the one called you must win a lot.
But something in me says
See, now, when that drop came, when I first listened to this, I was like, what has he just done to that tune? It's probably the smoothest two-step you've ever heard in your life, and then suddenly you feel like you've got to take your shirt off, oil up, and then fist pump to the sound of the bass line, you know, like it's German techno. And then I listened back to it, and it's what's even weirder is the conversation that we've had today. It's like a kind of splicing of the super smooth two-step sounds, but then it's got the club thumping going on the drop, so it kind of meets both the criteria to get the niceness in the club and then the drop when the bass line's going, and it's like
he had a premonition and heard what I said earlier and did it in advance. Yeah,
that's it. He's time travelled, listened to this, gone back, made this tune. It's perfect. It's the only explanation. But yeah, so it's like the two-step's so amazing, like the bass, the samples, the sound, everything's phenomenal. And when I was listening to it, I was like, oh my God, he's done it again. And then the drop put me off, but then when you drop it in the context of a garage set, works brilliantly, because the two-step comes in on the mix, so the mix sounds wicked, and then suddenly it drops hard, and then that's it. Like, I swear it only works in the context of a set. Just listening back to it now, even when it dropped, I was a bit like, the drop's a bit like just flat, just listening on its own. But in the context of a set, it works really well, and that's why it's kind of Marmite for me, and I had to talk about it today because of that. The weird merging of sounds that he's done. I
was so shocked to see it on your shortlist today because you were so passionate in your message to me about what the fuck is this. To then see that you had turned around on it that much, I was just like, it's going to be an interesting conversation. I mean, I didn't. I liked it the moment I heard it. It's got those typical Hans Glader tells about it, and like you say, it's smooth as fuck, and I immediately liked it. I love that little vocal hook, and I like the way just before the drop he's got like the vocal hook pitched up ever so slightly. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like an answer. It got that bit got right into my head. I wasn't too sure, much like you said, I wasn't too sure, like the bit towards the end of the track. And I think what put me off more than anything was the volume. And this sounds really pedantic, so sorry, Hands, but it's the volume of that snare towards the end is just like a little bit too much for me. And even listening back to it then, it still grates on me a little bit. But all round, in terms of the way it's constructed, it's almost like a journey, isn't it? Like you, and I get what you're saying about like in the context of having it in a set. I'd be interested to hear that in a club, because I think it's the type of track, and there's a lot of tracks that we do discuss on here where arguably you can't really appreciate them until you hear them on a club system, right? I'd be intrigued to hear that. What strikes me about it is a bit odd, and I think I mentioned this when you messaged me. I mentioned it in reply to you. Was it's available on Wub Club, right? Is it Wub Club World or something?
Yeah, Wub World Volume 1, I think it is. Yeah,
Wub World Volume 1. Like, it's a real standout in terms of its styling compared to everything else on that album. And it's not to say that it's better than the other stuff on the album, because that's purely subjective, right? But it objectively, for me, in my perspective, and I'm not criticizing Wub Club in this, it sounded a bit out of place almost on that compilation. And I don't know if that's why, like you identified, it kind of goes into that kind of wobbly 4/4 kind of section towards the end. If that's kind of the segue, I don't know. Even listening back to it, then it still sounds a bit out of kilter with the rest of the compilation. So that struck me as like a little bit odd. Equally, like, if he comes to you with a track that strong, and you're not going to say no to putting it out there, are you? So
mate, I'm glad they found a way. They knew they put it.
I'm glad they found a way to get it out there, and yeah, having it track one, like you say, that's the first one people are going to hear when they click to preview the release, right? So maybe it's going to sway a few people, but top marks as always for Hands. I'd like some clarification, please, Hands, on how he got as good as he is. Right, because I looked into Hands a little bit, right, and I know me and you last time we discussed him. I think last time we discussed him in detail on the podcast was when we played Culture, right, and we identified the rhythms in that, like the percussion, how kind of creative that was. And I think if I recall rightly, when I did a bit of reading on him, he started off as a drummer, right, at a young age. So that explains why his percussion is kind of quite creative in the way, like the rhythms he uses and stuff. But I don't like to try and age people. I've seen pictures of him. He doesn't look that old. And he's so fucking good. It's almost frustrating for me. It's almost frustrating for me to kind of listen to it and go, how did he get this good? I'd love to know like a little bit more of the backstory, because as best I can tell, like from what I've looked at online, he's fairly enigmatic in terms of the information out there that's available about Hans Glader. I'd like to know a bit more about his story. So
we need to get him on here, it sounds like.
Yeah, that'd be a good. I'd like to just sit down and ask him a few questions. I had some minor interactions with him on social media, and that seems like a nice enough fella. If you hear this, Hands, please give us a bit more background, because this year he's done some, like every time we talk about Hans Glader tune, we're just like fucking out. It just blows me away.
Absolutely. I'm
going to stop gushing. I'm going to stop gushing now. I'm going to stop gushing now.
All right, well then let's move on to the next one. If we're worried about gushiness, you're really excited about the next one, and I am too.
I am
to hear
excited
about
it. I listened. I heard this, and I just chanced across it. I didn't really know. I hadn't heard of like Claudilia. Right, I was familiar with that name because I think she did something on The Voice, and I know she's got a fantastic voice. So I was intrigued, but I don't necessarily associate her with garage. The artist on the remix is called Bass Trick. Not familiar with him. Didn't really know what to expect. Clicked it, shit a brick, and immediately thought, oh my God, I have to play this on the podcast because I want to see Greg's reaction to this. I've listened to it on loop since then because it's fucking brilliant, and I'm going to stop talking and play it. And
I'm worried because there's a lot of pressure here for me to react to this properly.
Well, I'm worried I've overhyped it now, because if you don't react with one of your trademark head bobs, I'm going to look like a right tit. This is Claudilia with a track called Habanera. It's the Bass Trick remix, and it's available via Orchard US.
Mate,
How good is that? How
fucking
good
Vo.
is that?
Bro, fucking Vo. My God. I didn't expect it to go 4/4. That was a surprise.
Mate, it's so creative in the way, like it starts two-step and then it's got that breakdown and the little flamenco guitar comes in and that makes you go, oh, right, cool, it's going down that route. And then it drops and then it's got that little vocal cut on the drop, which threw me. And then the bass kicks and it's, it's just, and even like as you progress through, like the way he spliced little bits of the vocal in there and like those little sort of retro rave stabs in there as well. It's just all round fantastic. There he goes again.
Oh.
Bass Trick presents Vocal Street
Love
The
it.
random whistle just in there.
I mentioned before actually, like, because obviously you said about garage being international, and obviously we've kind of moved around the globe a bit already. So this guy, so Bass Trick is French.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he's apparently typically known for trap. So I don't know like how deep-seated his roots in the kind of like this kind of bass-heavy 4/4 thing is, but it's a fucking brilliant offering. I want to hear more.
I would never ever have called France on that. I wouldn't have even called Spain. It's like, it sounds like you could probably call Spanish because they got a bit of the Amen breaks in there, but never French. Wow.
Yeah.
What do you know where he's from in France? What part? Just Frontier.
Let me have a look.
I don't have to put you under pressure from that. I always wonder because my favourite Frenchman 123 MRK is out of Marseille. I always wonder what the scene's like down that way. But yeah, mate, what a find. Where is that? Was that a Spotify release radar, Jobby?
No, it wasn't. That was that's a Juno one. I was just browsing the new releases on Juno, and it was one of the very last ones I got to. And if I'm honest, I was a bit jaded by that point because there was a few that really hadn't enamoured me. There was a few that I was just like, this don't belong in the garage section. Oh, what's this shit? Clicks on it. I'm like, fucking hell. All right, I retract that. That's great. So let me look. I'm just looking him up on Spotify, see if there's anything in there about whereabouts in France he is from. But yeah, I'm keen to hear more. I'm chomping at the bit for more. Let's have that. Dark, distorted, and downright French and fresh trap bass producer and DJ Bass Trick is enlisting the next generation of bass heavy allure. Born and bred in France.
Oh wow!
Doesn't say whereabouts.
That local
in France.
area of France.
He's got. I noticed. You know when you go on a Spotify profile and it tells you where the listeners are from. So he's got quite a big fan base in Los Angeles. He's got quite a big fan base in Paris. So that might suggest Paris. It says here at the bottom, Bass Trick has sent a barrage of crowds into frenzy at Lollapalooza in Paris in 2019. I don't know. Maybe he can hear this and give us a shout. And
I
he's got some new fans in us, I think. Anyway, right?
Definitely. This instant follow on SoundCloud, and got to check the back catalogue for that one, man. What a find. All right, how are we doing for time? We're about 35 minutes in. Let's go on to my last pick. And I've got to work out how to play this one because it's 6 minutes long. So I have picked a genre surfer, is the only way that I can kind of describe it. It's probably not 100% in the garage kind of realm, but it's out of Sydney. And it is by a guy called Friendless. This is a track entitled Rush. I love it as just a little genre surfer. It's obviously it needs a bit of pitching up if you're playing it out in a garage set. But yeah, a rare kind of housey pick from me. So friend us out of Oz, and I get promos from the label that it comes out on from them regularly, and normally it's just all a bunch of weird kind of commercial stuff that's not my bag, but this kind of come through and my ears pricked up. The vocalist is called Shay Savage, or maybe Sauvage if we want to go posh, I don't know. And I just really liked it. It hovers on the house garage line, and it's a really nice vibe. And that's why it was kind of my wild card pick, but not in a kind of savage way as it may usually be. Yeah. Apart from the vocalist, who's called Shay Savage.
I was very much enjoying that. Like lovely, like really interesting kind of chord progressions, and I've noticed that with a lot of like the Australian artists, they use some really interesting chord progressions. I don't know whether that's like a cultural thing, if that's deliberate, or they just seem to be quite creative. I often think it with the Angus Green stuff as well. He's got really interesting chord progressions in his tunes. But no, really, I was really liking that. It's quite kind of, after listening to the last one, it's quite kind of harmless, isn't it? It's not going to take anyone's head off, but it's nice, and you can definitely hear the inspiration, like a range of inspirations in there. I can listen to that and be like, oh yeah, I can hear that they're obviously a fan of X, Y, and Z, and they brought it all together nicely in a way that just, yeah. I mean, my head was going the whole time. It still is now. Like that. That's Be Rich Records, right?
Yeah, that's the one. Be Rich Records. That's them straight out of Sydney.
Nice work. I like it. Good pick, man.
Yeah. Cheers, man. All right. Let's enough of that then. Thank you, Miss Savage. Shall we round it up with our final in the rest of the best, as it were?
I was about to jump straight into Forgotten Gems, but no, yes, best of the rest first.
I understand why you're excited for that. We've got some bangers today, but yeah, let's go for it. One for one, all yours.
I have Soul Mass Transit System with a track available on Instinct UK called Wine. It's just retro, dutty speed garage with bass that takes your face off, and I fucking love it.
Nice. I've gone with a artist called Fraxy, and it's a tune called Eden. It's a bit of a wonky, weird one. Again, just surfing genres, probably at 125. Check it out.
Nice. Next up, we've got Baker with On My Mind, which is available now via Big Boy Beats. We've talked a lot about Baker on here, and this is possibly his best offering yet. And the only reason I didn't raise it as one of my top three was because obviously we only talked about him relatively recently on the show. But it's brilliant, and I would highly recommend you go and check it out now.
Fantastic work. Big up, Baker. My next one is by a couple of veterans. They are called The Veterans, and this track is called Candyman. Veterans is two long-time scene heads, Juice Man and Ricochet, and this is their latest bass-heavy stuff. They've been putting out some top-quality bass. Check this one out, man. It's a savage one.
I have learnt today. I did not know that. There you go. Next up, I've got the MPH remix of Dreaming by Rootkit, which is available on Bitbird now. It's standard MPH goodness, lovely, feel good, bumpy, bass heavy 4/4 vibe, flawless as always.
My next pick is Changing Phases once again. Just these guys, high caliber. Their latest track, Never Leave You Alone. Wicked UK garage, as always, kind of doing that funky house versus new school garage vibe. Absolutely love it.
Changing Phases are in the running, as one of the top acts of the year for me. They've been consistent with, consistently releasing quality stuff, and I love that choice. Next up, I've got Love in My Heart by Dante, which is available now on Sunday Flavors. It's a real good slice of feel-good 4/4 garage house. It's a Sunday flavour, as the label suggests, and it just makes me smile without fail.
Biff the vibes. I've gone for a pick with Daffy. This is off of this Special Series Volume 2 album. The track's called Settings, and it's kind of breaky, bassy goodness. Check that bad boy out.
I've got the new tune from Kells, which is available on 440 now. It's called Stay True. It's a lovely blend of sounds and real creative arrangement. Really can't recommend it highly enough. It went straight on my Just Step playlist, and I've been listening to it on loop the past few days.
Large up 440 each and every. I've got another genre surfer in my next position. This is Snake Hips. They're a little bit commercial, but they've released a tune called All Over You, and it's sampling 702, You Don't Know, and it's just really, really nice. It's again riding that line between garage and house, but done really, really well, and yeah, I've really enjoyed it. Check it out.
Snake picks. Next up, I have Gold from Sensor, which is available on Steppers Club. Sensor is brilliant. He's been on fire in recent times. Everything he puts out hits the nail on the head, and this is no exception. It's a sort of retro throwback stepper, as you might expect on Steppers Club, but just a real nice vibe to it. Highly recommended.
Mate, Sensor has been underrated for a good few years. Wicked producer.
Yeah, agree with that.
I'm back with Oppa Dan. This one's a freebie, and she has done a remix of a remix. She's rehashed Friends Within's Renegade Master rehash to put her own garage bass spin on it, and it's wicked. Freebie from Oppa Dan's SoundCloud, I think, somewhere. Check it out, grab it, play it, spin it, and be happy.
I'm guessing I probably won't be able to find that on Spotify to add it to our playlist, so I will substitute it for something else by Oppa Dan. It's not like there's a shortage of brilliant stuff to choose from, so we'll find something.
Definitely not.
Next up, I've got 4X Cameron Bloomfield with Going Nowhere. It's the Selector remix. Selector, another one who's always consistent. I think when you give him a good vocal to work with as well, it really brings out the best in him, and he's laid down some really nice keys on this. It's the keys that really grabbed me from the get-go with it, but all in all, it's just a solid production across the board, and yeah, another one highly recommended. I've definitely been listening to that one lately.
Selector always getting the thumbs up from me, mate. So last one, he's back again, Mr. Para. Shooting Stars. Just what can you say about this tune? Just the samplage again, on point. Para's done it. Yeah, wicked. I can't give it any kind of sentence that will give it justice. You have to listen to what this guy's done to this tune. Wicked things. Big up Para. I think that's it.
Good stuff. Oh, that was a solid little selection of, garage is good. I think especially this time of year is always a good time for garage, right? Because like we identified last time, all the labels panic and go, no one buys records in December and January. Let's release all of it now. And you end up with just like an influx of brilliant stuff. And it's a strong time for garage anyway, but especially the end of this year, I'm feeling good about it all. And yeah, so keep them coming, lads.
So
and ladies.
Let's forget about this rubbish new school stuff. let's have some memories of years past. What's your pick this show for the Forgotten Years?
I've been itching to pick this one for my Forgotten Gem for a while now, because there are two tracks that really stand out to me from the history of garage that I would say are my favourites. One of them I identified the other month when we were discussing Para, which was the one with Robbie Craig. If you really, tell me if you really love me, love that track. This is the other one. It takes me right back to 2006, being at Herbal for the Prolific Club Nights, which was MJ Cole's club night for anyone who missed it. It was pure vibes, and this track is just the epitome of that. This is the MJ Cole remix of Hello There by Cage Baby, which was available as a joint release between Prolific and Southern Fried. And I'm going to shut up and let you enjoy it now.
When this was out, I remember thinking, this is such high caliber music. How is garage not on anyone's radar right now? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was such a good remix. I mean, overwhelmingly across the board, I think if you did a survey of garage heads, on who the best producer or who their favourite producer is, I think it's probably safe to say that MJ Cole would be the name that would crop up most often over the years, right? And I think this remix is a prime example of why, because when you listen to the original, and I don't want to rag on Cage Baby because obviously like his vibe is completely different to garage, when you listen to the original and then listen to this, you go, how the fuck did MJ Cole get to that from the original? Because it's so different. I mean, like the original Cage Baby version doesn't really even have a hook. There's no chorus on it, and MJ kind of took that oh yeah bit and kind of, do you know what I mean? Stop Playing With My Heart made it into like a little hook. It's genius, and it's got all of those trademark MJ tells. I mean, I think the thing that made me fall in love with it above anything else is that high-pitched whiny synth that sounds like it's pulled straight off of the track with Jill Scott. I can't remember what the perfect. It sounds like Perfect Pitch, right? It's a similar kind of synth line to that, but it's just. It's one of the few tracks that I can listen to that I could dance to. I mean, I have danced to it many times at Herbal. Actually, I can sit here and I can appreciate it to the level, and I don't want to sound like a soppy bastard here, but it brings a tear to my eye. I've literally sat here and like that tune invokes that much emotion from me that it brings tears to my eyes, and I can't say that about a lot of garage. I can say that about a lot of music. I can't necessarily say that about a lot of garage tunes, but that track just takes the nail and just fucking hits it so hard you can't even see it anymore. Do you know what I mean? It's just lovely across the board.
I can't say much more than you have, mate. One of the favourites of the Prolific lot that came out. I mean, was there any kind of bad eggs in that era from Prolific? I don't know whether I could pick one. They were all smashers.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. I think if any of them didn't quite hit the mark, without sounding negative, it might have been So Damn Into You for me personally. I felt like that was lacking a little bit, but then by design, I think that was supposed to be a bit minimal. But that aside, I think with you. Like as a label, if I look back in garage and pinpoint which labels had the strongest repertoire, Prolific's right up there because it was, always solid, wasn't it?
And this tune's even got the little 4/4 switch for you in there as well, which keeps you happy. Honestly, I think the 4/4 switch up in that track is probably solely responsible for why I do the 4/4 switch up in so many of my tracks. Because I remember opening for MJ Cole Prolific one night, and I remember playing that track, and it was when that track first broke and it was really big. And I remember like just the way it gets things moving when it switches from 2-step into 4/4. It's got that breakdown, and unless you've heard the tune, you're not expecting that 4/4 bit, and it's just so slickly done. And I remember like ever since then, like every time I make a 2-step track, I end up going, right, needs a 4/4 switch. I just can't help it. I mean, it's a great pick, mate. You've gushed over it plenty enough for both of us, I guess. I've got real fond memories, and it just instantly takes me back when I hear it. It's an awesome tune. Thanks for the memories, MJ Cole. I guess let's wind that one down, and we can step into the next pick. This was another guy. The next pick is, let's play it and then we'll talk about it after. The next one was out on Qualified Records, so you can probably guess who the artist was. It was Qualified, and this one is entitled "See the Light." Mate, that song was just so much fun to mix. Like the way that it just progressively came in when you got it in the mix. And each of the different parts of the tunes just layered on top of each other, and then the vocal cuts start coming in. It was just so much fun. And then just when it drops, just gets you going. I mean, Qualified had some wicked tunes out around the Lost years. And I remember when I first heard of Qualified, I heard of him when I was on London Underground way back when, and it was everyone like, oh, Qualified, he's a producer, he makes music. I'd never heard any of his stuff, but he was kind of like one of the main names at the time. When I was on radio, it was Qualified was the guy that was doing things because he was making tunes. And then I remember he'd done like some remixes, like he remixed Baby Cakes, he remixed Sambuca for the Wide Boys, and he kind of got this... I think he got a bit of a stigma of being a bit of a bad Todd ripoff, which wasn't necessarily fair. It still had his own kind of take on it, but it was very similar to Todd. When the Lost Years started and this tune dropped, I think he progressed into having his own sound at that point. And this was kind of like a stake in the ground to say, no, we're moving on now. This is Qualified sound, and this is what I can do. And this was one when I come back to DJ, and I think this was one of the first tunes that I bought when I was like, right, what's going on with New School again? And just it's been my favourite ever since. I can't count the number of times that I've played the vinyl of this one. Absolutely love it. And again, just awesome memories of the Lost Years.
Agree with everything you said there. Yeah, it's difficult to really add much to that. I mean, we've talked about Qualified before, and I think I would struggle to pick a favourite because there was this. There was Just Being Fooled, which just had a beautiful vibe to it. There was Give It Up as well, which was just so tough. He definitely, like you said, in those Lost Years had a really distinctive Qualified sound that you could just pick out a Qualified recordings release from a mile off. And this track right here that you're playing is the epitome of that. Yeah, like you say, it's the arrangement that really makes it. I think it's the way it builds and the layers come in, and then those little vocal cuts, like at each break. It's got a little, too slick kind of like those little subtle bits. And when you're chopping and you're cutting, you can really do stuff with that. Qualified is a ledge as well. If you've never had a chance to chat with him, I'd highly recommend touching base with him because he's a cool guy. I think that kind of comes across in his tunes because he definitely has his own distinctive approach to garage, right? And I love the way that those tunes are kind of soulful and bumpy, but they're really tough as well. Do you know what I mean? When you listen to this, and there are other ones that are better examples, and actually I think like the Lost in Space mix of this was like quite a bit tougher, but like it just had a real nice approach to kind of blending all the best things about garage, and I think that's why he kind of gained so much traction and built such a good reputation for himself in those years. I'd just like to hear some more. Where did you go, Matt? Come back. Come back, we need more.
I bet he's got a whole shitload of music sitting on a hard drive somewhere he's waiting to unleash on the world.
I think he mixed it up quite a bit. From my conversations with him, I think he used to make, like, obviously we talk about Qualified and we go, like, garage producer, but, he was making stuff that wasn't garage before, and I dare say he's probably making other stuff that isn't garage in the years that followed this as well. In fact, there was one that, the name of it escapes me, there was a collaboration between him and somebody else that sampled a Ruby De Silva track, and I can't think what that Ruby De Silva track was called, but it was on the verge of charting at one point, and I remember being really excited. And I don't know what happened, but I don't know if the release fell through or if there were some issues with clearance. Didn't end up happening. I remember being gutted for him, but alas, I go off on a tangent. See the Light, great track, great selection. Really enjoyed that. Listening to that just then, exactly just as much as I enjoyed it the first time I heard it, and I think that speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Yeah, completely. It's nice. It's nice to hear it because I'm so used to hearing it in the mix. It's nice just to hear it on its own as well,
Yeah, just take the time to listen and appreciate it. That's the thing with DJing. Like you don't necessarily take the time to sit back and appreciate the tune as a whole, do you?
No,
so it's
really
nice.
not.
It's nice to get the moment to just break stuff down like that. For sure.
So that was fun. Let's should we go into our gassing section of the cast? We've got an interesting topic you brought up. One, I refer to it as Johnny One Plays, and that's probably more of a dismissive term that I would call a Johnny One Play, a song that I know I'm only ever going to play once. I guess your issue is that every song is becoming a Johnny One Play.
For sure, for sure. It's something that gets bandied about on social media a lot. And I saw that a big man from Point Blank posted up a status about garage in general the other day. And this was one of the things that kind of came off the back of that. It became a bit of a talking point on Facebook. There was a lot of people going back and forth with differing opinions on it. But it's a real, yeah, it's definitely a thing. And it's definitely been a thing for a long while. And I don't think it's specific to garage. I don't want to criticize anyone or come off negative, kind of highlighting it. Just an observation, because the point of the status originally was like, what is garage? What's holding garage back? And this is a topic of conversation that I remember being bandied about on Uptown as back as like 2003, 2004. We forever were debating this. Definitely one of the things that plays into that is the fact that the digital era and music having less monetary value in general terms arguably makes it more disposable, because you aren't paying 7 or 8 quid. When I look back to my vinyl days when I was buying vinyl, I remember paying 14, 15 quid for a tune, but I was damn sure going to absolutely rinse the fuck out of that tune because I'd paid that much money for it. If you're paying 99p, sometimes 79p for some of these tracks, they don't hold that same, there isn't necessarily that same thing inside you that's going to make you be like, right, I've got to fucking hammer this track. But moreover than that, I mean, I don't, part of it obviously is the value, the monetary value. Part of it is also the fact that there is just such an expanse of fantastic new garage around that arguably there wasn't once upon a time. And I know I don't want to sound hypercritical of you, because you definitely are one of the people that falls into the category of playing a track once and then moving on. And I get it, because there's so much good music at your fingertips that's accessible to you that you want to showcase. And that's admirable, right? That's admirable. I get that. And I applaud that. And I listen to your show specifically because I'm like, oh, what's he playing this week? I want to see what the next thing that you put out. And I love your little random wonky wild cards. That's what it's all about, right? That's what being a DJ is about. It's about discovering new music. The only problem with it is that there are people like you, and that is like your, I don't want to say USP is the wrong phrase to use, but that is like your MO, right? Like you are known for being a DJ that plucks out new tunes, that tries to break new things, and you're looking to expose new music. And essentially that's what we do in the podcast as well, right? So, it is what it is. Equally, there needs to be a balance. And I'm not saying you need to change your MO. All I'm saying is that there are a lot of DJs whose MO isn't to kind of solely play new music. And yet, in spite of that, they play a track once and then move on. I think what we need is a balance of people that are trying to break new music, but we also need DJs that are going to rinse tunes to maximum effect. Because I could count on one hand probably the amount of DJs that I listen to who I know are going to play a tune week in, week out. And like people like Big Man and people like Impact spring to mind immediately. Like Impact is the first name that springs to mind, because he will play a tune for months on end. I mean, there's been tunes that Paris sent him in the past year. There's been tunes that I've sent him in the past year, and Beat Demon Beats and Shadow of Light, and he'll play them for literally week in, week out for 3 or 4 months. And that is the main difference between garage in 2021 and garage. Well, that's the thing that carries over from back in the day. Do you know what I mean? Like the DJs back then, like if you look at like shows like the Dream Team, right? They used to rinse a tune, but absolutely hammer it to get it into people's minds, to get it into the forefront of your mind. And that's how classics are made. And I think for a long while, a large section of the garage demographic has failed to do that. And I don't want to sound like I'm sitting here on my fucking pedestal criticizing everyone, because I get it. Like I said, there's so much music coming out. As a DJ, you want to kind of discover new stuff. I'm not really sure what I'm trying to say. I'm not really sure what I'm trying to say the way forward is. I just feel like there needs to be some kind of collective agreement that we're going to kind of get behind tracks, because I've had people say things to me recently, like even about Be OK, which we started the show off, right? Merlin played it on Kane FM this week, and he said this track is quickly becoming a classic. That was the exact phrase he used, and it made me think, it made me smile, because I was thinking like we were going to have this topic of discussion on gassing. He identified that it's quickly becoming a classic. For him, he's identified that it's obviously got the potential that he believes it could be a classic. But I can tell you now it won't be, because in a couple of months' time, everyone's forgotten all about it and moved on to the next thing. And it's indicative. In one sense, it's good, right? Because the fact that there is enough higher quality music coming out that can happen is a good thing. Equally, and I identified this in that interview that I mentioned you in to 909 Originals. It's just a shame that there is stuff that is so high caliber that is flying under the radar. Like even looking at this year, some of the tracks we flagged on this show, like All Right by Sammy Verji, like Spend the Night by MPH, they have the potential that if you took them out of 21 and you dropped them into the late 90s, early noughties, they could easily have become classics. They could have crossed over. They would still be getting played now. But this time next year, is anyone going to be playing or talking about those tunes? They'll be long forgotten. And I think there's a large demographic, a large chunk of of garage producers that are, and again, I'm not criticising them, but their work rate is so high, it's become the norm. And I think this also kind of piggybacks off of what I was saying about music being disposable. It's become the norm to put out several tracks a month. And I don't want to name names because I don't want to seem like I'm bitching about anybody, but there are certain producers where their work rate is so high, they put out so much material that I personally do not have time to appreciate one release before the next release comes out. And that's a real shame for me because I know those guys are solid producers and I know there will be tunes that they've put out that I would damn well love, but I never get the chance to damn well love them because by the time I've kind of come across that release, another 3 or 4 tracks have kind of come out. So I think there are 2 issues at hand here. There are the fact that DJs aren't playing tunes more than once, and then there's the fact that labels and producers are bombarding with DJs to music to the point where they're unable to. And I don't know how in 2021 you kind of take a backward step and get away from that. This is a conversation piece that I've debated with multiple people. I was talking with Dom Scott about it recently, and he was saying about how ridiculous it is that you have to put out that much material. And he was saying, actually, I think there's merit in putting out less material, but just making sure that you're working with a label that is really going to hammer that release and really make a point of that release. I'm not sure that it's that simple because I think the labels have just a harder task on their hands as anyone else does of trying to market themselves and their music. I think you're just kind of up against it these days. I sat down the other day, right? And I mentioned to you before in an earlier podcast, I've been so active this year in terms of what I've been producing, stuff that I've engineered, stuff that I've remixed. I reckon, in a ballpark figure, I've put out over 50 tracks this year. There's 52 tracks, there's 52 weeks in a year, right? So when you put that into context, that's fucking mental.
Ridiculous,
and back in the day, it's ridiculous. You wouldn't have to do that back in the day to get by, right? But it's almost like, I feel like in order to stay relevant, it has become a necessity that your work rate has to be that high. And that's just a crazy position to be in. I was talking with one of the labels I worked with recently about one of my recent releases, which the label thought was really strong and kind of didn't sound a million miles from a previous release that we put out over the summer, which did quite good numbers. And they're like, I don't understand why that release just went by the wayside. Just it was there and then it was gone. But the level of music that's coming out and the fact that people aren't getting behind it in the same way just makes it almost it's almost like an impossible Rubik's Cube to solve. I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
I don't know the answer to it for sure. It's a new world. It's a new kind of landscape for music. I mean, way back when I was like in my late teens, early 20s, I was skint, and when you're paying £7-8 a time for a vinyl, you can't buy every single thing that's ever come out. And I remember going into like the record shop, Uptown Records mainly, and I'd listen to like pretty much everything that's on the shelf. Like I get to the point where he's like, you've listened to everything, and I know because I know that I had to pick tunes that wouldn't be Johnny One Place because I didn't have the money to keep buying music, so I needed to pick a song that had longevity. And sometimes that would mean I'd pass over songs that other DJs might have been playing at the time, but purely my pocket couldn't afford to keep up with kind of the trends. But also you had less to pick from back then. I mean, garage was a genre and it was one shelf of music that was changing from week to week, but it's nothing like the volumes we've got now. The ability to constantly self-publish and make music in your bedroom, mix it, master it, ship it off all yourself if you was talented enough, which plenty of people do. It means that the landscape becomes not just the people that have managed to break through and get releases on record labels or self-release because they've put the work in. Anyone can do it now, and it means that you've got just all of this talent getting heard that wasn't getting heard before. And like you said, it means that there's so much music out there. I think house music probably suffered from this more during the vinyl days. Like I remember seeing my housemate who I lived with way back when, who was a house DJ, and he just had like a rack of vinyl, and I knew that he was barely playing some of them because there was just so much house just constantly going out because it was such a more widely accepted genre. To be able to pick out kind of the classics from that, it was even more difficult back then. And I dread to think what the digital kind of landscape is like now. And I think that's why you ended up with so many kind of subgenres of house. Because if you didn't do that, you wouldn't be able to like slim down what you're playing. And that's why I kind of try and keep inside my lane when I'm picking tunes. I've got like a very kind of narrow margin that I want to stay in, because I know if I went outside to everything, I'd never be able to pick a set from week to week. I know that there are DJs that try, like you said, Impact's trying to do it. There's a guy on my station, Man Like Dan, who's been a big supporter of me for many, many years. And I know that he tries to push tunes more regularly, like, and play the same thing every show to kind of keep that kind of momentum and not just have it as a throwaway track, because he knows, right, this thing is such high quality, you need to give it a bit of airtime. Are people doing that kind of in the big leagues? I don't know. I mean, obviously they have to do that for commercial radio, but I like. Does that mean that now we have to do that in our genre? I don't know. Like, it's like you said. I think you probably need some DJs that are doing that as here are the kind of big ones that we're supporting. And if I was playing out regularly, I know that I'd have to have that sort of selection, because I'd be playing it out to a crowd, and it wouldn't. Playing live on a radio show is two different things. But I don't play it anymore. I'm too old and fat, so I don't get the opportunity to do that. I also know as well, I know lazy DJs that will rock up, they'll get booked and they'll rock up to a gig with a USB they haven't changed for 6 months because they just can't be arsed. And it could be, they're trying to kind of keep songs alive and push them solidly. But no, there's also a lot of laziness at that level. So I think there's a massive gap to get that kind of curated longevity set, be that live or, in mixes somewhere. But I don't know who's the person to fill that gap.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? I mean, there's a couple of things that you identified there. First off, I'll address that point, because I feel like when EZ left Kiss, that was, for me, that was a real dark day for garage. I always used to like listening to his show, but EZ was a really good example of someone who found a really good balance in terms of doing this. Like, I know, like, his track selection used to get bandied about on Uptown, and people used to say, "Oh, he's lost touch," blah 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 blah. Ignoring that, right? He did a really good job of picking out some of the new stuff and doing a weekly rotation where he'd play new bits. But if he liked something, he would fucking hammer it for months at a time. So to have that, have someone of his caliber on a station of that magnitude, of Kiss's magnitude, every week doing that, did work wonders for those tracks at that time. And I feel like perhaps that's what's missing. And that's not me criticizing anybody that is on that station. I don't want it to come off the wrong way. But we're just basically missing like a focal big name who is finding a balance between new stuff, but also repping those ones that need repping more than once. I don't know whether I'm making sense.
Yeah, no, you're making sense. But he does his New Volve radio thing. So
he's got his New Volve radio show, right? But the New Volve show the New Volve show is almost in line with what you're doing. I mean, obviously you're playing a very different selection of tracks, but the playlist on that, in essence, changes each week. I mean, you could argue that obviously he usually has a few old bits in there. Maybe you could swap out those old bits with some of the more recent bits and just play them more than once. You could make that argument, but he's doing his thing, and New Volve's picked up a lot of steam, and there's obviously a reason it's picked up a lot of steam. It's obviously a formula that's working, right? I don't know. I feel uneasy discussing it because it sounds like I'm sitting here moaning that people aren't playing my tracks more than once. Where in essence, I fucking am. But it's not with criticism, because I do get that, and I do, and there are many tracks by many different producers that are brilliant and need playing more than once. One thing I did pick up on that you said was you said, obviously you gave the example that you used to go to Uptown and you were buying vinyls and you would only buy the ones that weren't going to be Johnny One plays, right? get that totally. Agree with that. I followed the exact same method because, like you, I had a limited amount of money and vinyl was fucking expensive. The issue, I think the difference is the thing that I'm highlighting here is that there are tunes that DJs are getting, that are picking up on, that aren't Johnny One plays, but are only getting played once. That's the issue. Do you know what I mean? Like a track like, just as an example, it springs to mind because it's one of the strong tracks of this year, but All Right by Sammy Virgie is not a tune that you play fucking once. That's an absolute tune that needs to be belted week in, week out for a while. Do you know what I mean? And it's just such a shame that track was so big over the summer, but it's almost a thing. It's a thing of the past now because he's since had Quarantine done, Dagger Dagger. He's got the new one out with MPA. Do you know what I mean? And actually, it's an interesting one. Highlighting Sammy is a good example because I respect him massively. So I don't mean this in a negative way. He's not someone who's been as active as other producers have been this year. Do you know what I mean? His work rate has been a lot lesser than someone like MPH or Tough Culture, for example. Those are two guys who regularly put out a lot of music, and yet I'm still using him as an example of somebody who has had to put out more tunes since that big one, and as a result, that tune is kind of in the past. You know, if you dropped that tune back in the day, it would have gone on getting played for years. I don't know. I feel like I'm going around in circles here.
Yeah,
we're not really
because I don't
getting
know
to the
what the
bottom of
answer
anything,
is,
are we?
mate.
You know?
I don't know how to nail the answer of it. It's so difficult. I think because I can't see a way how you can focus on these tunes and then it's like it feels like it's like a river of music that would just flow over you and you'd miss it all because you're focusing on what's happened before. And it's like I don't know. I'm in such a habit now of like I want to see what's new and fresh and not miss anything that you just get into that habit of not playing it again. And you're right. It's like the Hans Glade a bit from earlier in the year on Night Bass. I've only ever played that once on radio, and it's one of the greatest tunes of all time. You know, but then if like the last live-ish set I did for Hootenanny Brixton, I went down and did like a web stream thing for them. And because I'm not doing a radio show, it allowed me to kind of pick out like a selection of tunes, and it was like the last couple of years from that point, I'd picked out all the favourites and the biggest and the baddest, and it's those sets there where I'll start to do replays of the best things. And me personally, I'm not doing enough of those kind of other sets that are not a radio show. I think for me now, a radio show and a live set, they're the differentiators of whether it's a Johnny One play or you're playing the best of all time kind of thing. I even played some old school bits in that, which is a rare one for me. But I wanted to do a kind of full yeah, mate.
Mr. Brains. It's got to be done. How could you?
How can I do a set and not drop Todd Edwards as I am, one of my favourite tunes of all time? You know, like.
Just didn't expect you to say it was all.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you've highlighted a point there. You know, maybe I'm focusing too much on radio and not kind of giving enough weight to other sets and club sets. I don't know. I think, you know, going back to what we talked about earlier in the show, it's very clear that there are certain vibes, certain little niche subgenres of garage that aren't getting repped in the club sets, though. So if you're not making that really mainstream, bass heavy, wonky 4/4 that's kind of satisfying the festival and club scene, you're making music that's getting played once. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like, and you mentioned when you were talking about house with the different subcategories of house, and I don't want to say that this is the way to go because I hate pigeonholing things, but it's almost like garage might, and this is obviously going to be a contentious thing to say, I'm fully expecting people to at me, it's almost like garage might benefit from splitting into little sub-brackets, or at least being listed in different sub-brackets. You know what I mean? It's almost like you need like a focal garage site that identifies two-step, 4/4. Do you know what I mean? And kind of breaks it all down so that people can kind of own in on a certain kind of vibe. Because I mean, obviously, that's what's happening with Garage House already, right? You've got quite a large group of guys who've kind of tired of all the bullshit and the politics and gone, fuck it, let's just do our own thing and we'll make music that kind of sounds the way we wanted it to sound back in the day. We'll carry that over. And that's what they're doing now. And they almost exclusively shop on TrackSource, and all of the label releases are exclusive to TrackSource, and like TrackSource is like a little focal point. It's almost like TrackSource is kind of geared towards Garage House, and that's obviously working for them. And it's almost like you need that to be the case, but across the board. I don't know. I don't fucking know. I feel like I'm just sitting here rambling like a bitter old man about it. But
No.
I just feel like we're missing
you and
part of
every
the
other
puzzle here.
artist is going through the same thing, Rob, mate. You're saying that you're only getting one plays. Everyone's only getting one plays.
It's such a shame, man. I mean, like Sweet Love, right? The Sweet Love release with Brendan Mills and Cherise Stanley is a prime example, right? In essence, I don't want to go into the politics of it because, long story short, the release got fucked up, so it didn't come out when it was meant to. It's now, for anybody wondering, and this is a shameless plug, but I'm going to do it anyway. It's now coming out on Riddler on the 7th of January 2022, so put that date in your diaries and be ready to spend your coins. But in essence, like, we had anticipated it was coming out end of October, start of November. So I did a lot of promo a month or two back, sent the track out to a load of people. Well, there was two issues here, and one of them's a different talking point, which we'll discuss on a gassing topic later down the line. One issue was that a lot of DJs just simply don't pick promos up anymore. So there was a lot of people that I was going, look, I've got a track here, and I firmly believe, this might come across arrogant, but I firmly believe that Sweet Love track, had we done that release back in the day, that would be a classic. It would have been a crossover chart success. I firmly believe that. I think it's strong enough to. And I was going to DJs going, look, I've got a release that I think this highly of. A lot of DJs weren't even bothering to fucking listen or download the promo. We'll come back to that on a later podcast. The DJs that did listen and download the promo, big up to them, and you were in that bunch. So was Man Like Dan, who you mentioned earlier, top fella, big up Danny. So they downloaded the track, they played it. The track's not out till January now, and that's due to no fault of my own. That's due to no fault of your you know, it's not down to you, so I'm not blaming anyone for that. But in essence, the track got played once, and that's it. And so I'm fully anticipating that the release won't be received the way that one would hope it would be received, because what you would hope and what would have happened back in the day is, a tune like that, people would have gone, fucking hell, that's a banger. And then it would have gone on their playlist week in, week out for months at a time. I mean, look at Sweet Like Chocolate as a great example of it, right? That was a tune that got played on the underground scene week in, week out for like 18 months before it actually got a fucking release, and then still managed to go to number one. These days, like, if I gave you a tune to play, like, if anyone even remembered it 18 months later, it would be a fucking miracle. Do you know what I mean? It's a crazy one. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, just while I'm bigging up, while I'm talking about Sweet Love, big up Scott Garcia for spinning it on Kiss the other week, because he was one DJ who's obviously played it more than once, and I got a lot of time for that, and I got a lot of time for the exposure on Kiss, so props. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's a minefield, isn't it? And like we said, it's a difficult one to know how to solve. I just think, like, I see constant arguing and back and forth on social media about, like, oh, old school's holding garage back. Oh, these old school DJs, they're not repping new music, they're holding garage back. Oh, nah, this is what's holding new garage back. There's not one single answer. There's a whole. I see a lot of different angles to that argument about what things that might be holding garage back. But purely in the sense of what we're talking about here in terms of Johnny One Plays, I do see that as a big piece of the puzzle that needs looking at holistically, you know, across the board. And that's why I just kind of wanted to mention, yeah, we haven't really addressed it, we haven't come up with any solutions, but if it makes one or two people that listen to our podcast think, and they go, oh shit, do you know what, he's right, maybe I'll pull out that tune from a couple of months ago and play it on my show this week. If it's a thought prompt, that's a good thing, right? I don't know. I hope
so. I'm already sitting there thinking about, right, I got to replay Sweet Love whenever that drops.
Mate, I wasn't trying to guilt you. And I get it. And like I said, I really do get what you're trying to do, and I admire it in going through and picking out a completely new set list each week. So it's not, I don't want to sound bitter. I don't want to sound like I'm criticising anyone, because I'm really fucking not. I don't know. I feel like as a whole, and it's not one individual, it's not you, it's not just those DJs, it's as holistically, it's the whole scene, I think needs to kind of band together and just maybe contemplate how they're supporting things and if there's a better way of doing it.
But I mean, also, like, if you go back to the analogy of what happens with house music way back when and what we look like now, I mean, to punch through in house music, you have to spend money. You have to spend money on promo, and you've got to go to a PR agency that's got a list that's sending it out. And, you know, those promo lists that are run by kind of media to radio, soul to soul, listen up, like they will get you ears of all of, like, the top kind of level DJs plus the next tiers. And they're more likely to be listened to because they're coming from those agencies a lot of the time. You know, I think they'll cater to a sound, and then a DJ will know, well, that agency sent me this tune before, therefore I might like this one. But say you got to spend money, and it's always a bit of a gamble, because you could spend it and then it could be throwaway.
For sure. I mean, is it that? I get what you're saying. I take that point on board. I think in one sense you're right. Equally, I'm kind of on the fence with some of those promotion companies, and I don't want to go naming any names because I don't want to alienate anybody or sound like a prick. But like, there are certain ones that send their mail out is so far reaching. I mean, I could name one that I've been on for the past 15 years, in spite of the fact that I don't think I've actually played in a club since like 2009. And I think that says a lot. Do you know what I mean? It's only recent that we've been doing a podcast. Why the fuck have they been sending me music all that time? That doesn't actually benefit anyone in any way. And I'm one of those people that if I want to support a tune, I will go and buy it, even if you send it to me. So luckily for them, I will go and buy that tune. But as somebody who runs a label and promotes my own music, I'm wary of getting on board with some of those services, knowing that they are sending tunes to that number of people. And I've heard some figures from some of those companies that they're sending to upwards of 2,000 people. It's difficult to sell music in 2021. And I know that it's not all about money. Like we talked about this at length with some of the topics we've discussed recently. So I'm not sitting here going, my only focus is to make money. But equally, when it's difficult enough to sell music to people, am I really going to be comfortable paying somebody else to send my music to 2,000 people who then aren't going to buy it? It's almost like backwards logic. But equally, yeah, I get what you're saying in terms of speculating to accumulate. It's that kind of that notion. There's part of me that goes, well, should you have to do that? And like, it depends how principle led you are. Like, I was talking with Ian at Strictly Flavour recently about like sending promos, and I kind of went into the issues that I was having that I touched on earlier with people not downloading promos. And we were talking about who you send promos to. And I said, like, wouldn't it just be awesome if actually you didn't have to send promos? Wouldn't it just be awesome if like every DJ was like you and went, do you know what? I do this because I love it. I DJ garage because I love garage. Therefore, I'm going to take the time out of my Friday afternoon to look at what releases are around and go and support those releases. That's the dream. That's the ideal world. And I appreciate I'm being idealistic and saying it. But in essence, I kind of believe that's how it should be. It shouldn't be everybody resting on their laurels going, right, what am I getting sent? What am I going to play once and then move on? Do you know what I mean? Maybe if everybody took it upon themselves to browse every release each week, that would impress on them the importance to ensure that they were being really selective about what they were playing and buying and go, right, do you know what? There's a lot of shit around. And I say that with no disrespect intended to any one person. It's just the nature of the beast when you've got a lot of music coming out, right? Maybe it would be beneficial if everybody was taking the time to go through all of that stuff, pick out their releases, acknowledge what weren't Johnny One plays, and I
mean, you've just made it go full circle into how I used to go to Uptown, and that's because I was a nobody DJ that wasn't on any. I wasn't getting records in the post way back then.
Well, that's it. Maybe that's the answer. Maybe everybody needs to be a nobody DJ that isn't getting every tune sent to them. This isn't me saying I'm just going to stop sending you tunes, by the way. But maybe that's part of the solution. Maybe labels, people making music need to be more selective about who they're sending to. Maybe that forms part of the problem. But it happens. Like, so one man I'll call out, Mr. Mike Milrain, bad boy, veteran of all the way back. I mean, he told me direct, like, he just stopped sending promos out, and you only literally get all his music from Bandcamp now. But his stuff is such high quality. The people he signs to his label are so good in that kind of genre of garage house that he's on. It'll always sell, Like, yeah, for sure. So, and he's also got the advantage of being Mike Milrain, isn't he? He's legendary status. You say that name carries weight. It's a bit like Noodles with DPR. A lot of the DPR stuff is exclusive to Bandcamp as well, right? But like, that will work for them because he's Noodles, because he was part of Groove Chronicles, because he runs DPR. But for a new name starting out, but for these kids that are breaking through, that's not the case. They don't have that outlet. Do you know what I mean? So they can't go. You'd almost be cutting off your nose to spite your face to go, well, do you know what? My tunes are good, so fuck it. I'm just going to put them out there, and because no one will fucking know about them and no one will buy them. So it's almost like you have to give shit away. You kind of backed into a corner with it. Well,
it's coming full circle then. It's when you've got the discovery, you have to listen to all of it to not miss out on this great talent that hasn't been promoted in that way. There's a whole bunch of swings and roundabouts as to why it happens that way and what you're going to miss out if you don't listen to everything and play everything that you possibly can that you like. It's so difficult. It's a real proper minefield. And I'm sure it upsets a lot of producers that they put all of this effort into this music for it to get discarded after one go.
Oh man, I speak to a lot of producers because I'm a fucking nerd, and we're all nerds at heart. So it's I get on alright with a few of them, and there's I'm not the only one who's identified this, and I'm not the only one who gets frustrated with it. I'll tell you what is interesting actually is that there are certain producers, and it would be very easy to scoff at them for being a bit formulaic. And I mean, we talked about a couple of producers that I would potentially put into this bracket who almost are template based in the way they create their tracks, and they kind of recycle elements. And it would be very easy to sit here on a high horse and go, well, that's bullshit. You should be creating everything from scratch. But actually, when you consider this topic, when you consider how frustrating it is to be churning out music and knowing that it's only getting played once and then people are moving on to the next bit, it kind of makes you appreciate why somebody can justify going, right, I'm going to fire that up and I'm just going to use that track as a template and do something similar. So it's almost like you can't sit there and moan about somebody being formulaic in their approach to making music unless you were really going to hammer their tunes.
Yeah,
completely. I guess is what I'm saying with that. Yeah, it's I mean, you've said everything that needs to be said really in terms of it's a minefield, but I just wanted to kind of raise it really as a thought provoking topic piece. So hopefully it's done that.
We would love to hear what you think if you fancy it. Drop us an email, feedback@intheukgarage.com.
I would be very eager to hear the thoughts of our listeners. And curiously, just being that we're moving into the festive season, because I did mention it on the last podcast, I noticed that we did have some interaction, but nobody addressed my question about why it's acceptable to make Halloween bootlegs, but I get frowned upon when I make my annual festive tune. And I've just done that as a deliberate segue to mention the fact that obviously I've got a new one out at the moment, which I would really like you to go and check out because it's a subtle Christmas take. But if somebody wants to feed back on that conversation, because I'm still not following the link here why it's acceptable to go and do 10 fucking Halloween remixes. Yeah, I get shit in my ear because I did another Christmas tune. And it's not like, do you know what pissed me off? Somebody made a comment to me about it the other day about fucking Christmas garage. Right. I will go back to my earlier comment where I said, I reckon I've put out over 50 tracks this year. I put out 50 tracks and you're going to fucking moan at me and try and infer that I'm a joke because I put out one Christmas track. Fuck you. Fuck you. Go and listen to it. It's even a subtle one as well, deliberately. Do you know what? I'm gonna go back when we do post-production this. I'm going to overlay my fucking Christmas track over this so you have to listen to it, you cunts.
I'm glad you're not bitter at all, Rob. That's great, mate. That's great. That's cool. I think we can wrap it up there, mate. We've been running 90 minutes. We had a good old gas. So you said we had some feedback. We didn't get anything to the email box this week, though. I don't think, right?
I've been speaking to Duncan. So obviously Duncan emailed us last month. We talked about that, and I've been in touch with him since, and we've kind of gone back and forth. But I can't remember the nature of our conversations. But I sometimes I don't know. I get a DM. You probably get a DM on social media or whatever, like about a topic that we've discussed or a tune. I'm always getting them. I really should start making a list of what people have said to me, so that at times like this, when we don't have emails to hand, at least I can go, well, you know. But we definitely had some comments on the YouTube channel.
Oh, we did. Yeah, no, we certainly did. We had one from Jai Q. If I can just pull that up now. So on the subject of the Spotify and music discovery, he was saying he was feeling me on how I've got no time for Spotify and have my own OCD way of discovering music, and everyone's different.
Yeah.
He says himself he'll rip and download entire YouTube channels worth of music for old and new and bung them on his iPod Classic, which he's still been using daily since 2011. Like, that's dedication, mate. And then go through every single track that he's downloaded one by one and note the ones that he likes, and then the ones that he likes he'll go and download an MP3 from the store.
That sounds fucking time consuming, but props to him for committing to that. I don't know what I'm more surprised about, the fact he does that or the fact he's still using an iPod. That's throwing me. I didn't know that was still a thing.
That's real kind of stuck in your ways, old school way of doing things, mate. And I've got to completely appreciate that, JQ, mate. That's, wow. Yeah. Awesome. And he says he's sure that Spotify is probably more convenient, but he just likes the way that he does it. So you know what? Like, everyone's got their own way. He's found his that works for him, and I've found mine that works for me. So yeah, big up for dropping the comment in. Renoir dropped us a little message as well, so we can big him up. He said he really enjoyed the streaming chat, and it's a difficult one. Bunch of positives to be had from online platforms, all the different avenues to potentially build a following, and all possible different revenue streams. Also the accessibility, as you pointed out. almost anyone with a computer and a bit of software can learn how to make music and put their stuff into the universe for all to hear. It's great, and the problem he thinks is that there's just too many platforms, too many artists, too much art. So
I think that's spot on.
Yeah, so he says not that any of those are particularly bad things, but as an artist, it's easy to find it all a bit overwhelming or just straight up deflating because it's so diluting. So if you're not so hot on the socials, you'll get next to nowhere, and it gets exhausting. So the sheer amount of insanely great music that doesn't get his fair share of ears is just really sad, and he gets that that's nothing new. I mean, it's echoing a lot of the stuff you're saying there.
Yeah, the social thing particularly. Yeah, I mean, I had a text from BWK actually when he listened to the last episode, basically saying to me, and all meant in good spirits. So I'm not moaning about it, but just basically saying he was kind of with you in terms of the streaming thing, and just basically saying you have to accept that you're not going to make any money from this. I mean, obviously it doesn't boil down to money entirely, but that does form part of the argument. Right? You just have to accept that you're not going to make any money from this, and anything nice that comes out of it is a positive. But accept what you're saying there. It's bullshit. You shouldn't have to. Like you mentioned on the last podcast, if you're making music, your focus should be on going doing live shows. Yeah, I see your point, but it shouldn't have to be that way is the point, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? And I think I've been following that thread because obviously Scott Diaz's Facebook status is what prompted us to talk about it. I've been following it, and he rightly posted up recently, what if I am... I don't think he used this exact example, but something to this effect. What if I am a single mother who makes music and I make really good music and I want to sell it, but I'm not in a position where I can go out and do gigs because I've got a kid at home that I've got to look after? Why should I have to accept, well, you only make music if you only make money from music if you're doing live shows? That shouldn't be the way. I think that's what I was trying to highlight in our streaming conversation. It's, this is the way that it is, but it shouldn't be the way that it is. And I think that's the reason why Scott is taking that stand in principle and going, do you know what, I'm going to pull my stuff from streaming services, because the music industry and the way it's set up, it shouldn't be that you've got to be 18 with no fucking responsibilities, living with your parents, so that you can make music. It doesn't matter that you don't make anything out of it, because actually you're going to go and chase bookings and festival gigs and stuff. The pie should be sliced evenly and more fairly, and it goes right back to Silicon Valley with these companies like Deezer and Spotify. If they're fucking remunerating everyone fairly from the get-go, then there's more money to go around. The CEO of Spotify, who's worth 40 billion or whatever without ever having actually made a tune, doesn't need to be worth that much money, is my point. They've got a viable business model here that they can now go, do you know what, when we set up, we couldn't afford to pay everyone X amount, but we're now making however many $100 billion a year in revenue, and therefore we should look to start remunerating across the board more fairly. I mean, that feeds back into what you were just saying from Renoir. There are so many people that they would then have to remunerate that. How would they do that? I'm just convinced there is a more fair way to do it. And ultimately, it's greed at the top level that's fucking the rest of us in the arse, because you end up with a situation where you've got people like Adele, Calvin Harris, Rihanna, these big names who are making fucking millions. Like, what was Calvin Harris worth now? Like 55 million or something? I think his net worth's higher than that. I think that was his annual earnings one year. You've got people like him. How the fuck is he making 50 million in a year? And yet I put out 50 releases in a year and make pennies. Do you know what I mean? It's bullshit, and it's not the way it should be. And that's all I'm going to say on the matter, because I can feel myself ranting again.
Yeah, I'm not going to tread the old ground. I think we talked about it a lot on the last episode, and I'm glad that you're passionate about it, and I hope you find a way. But yeah,
I'm glad that we got some feedback from it as well. Big up everyone.
Completely, yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah, thanks to Renoir, thanks for Jaiku, thanks for everyone that dropped comments on the YouTube video. We even had CJ listen back, which was good.
We did. Yeah, top man.
And he was just talking about how he's put it on the shelf, and he's now working on Panda on the Bamboo Tree, which is completely different to his CJ alias. So big up CJ. Thanks for listening back, and I'm glad you was happy with us gushing over your tunes. I'm
glad you name dropped his new project. I was going to say we have to make a point of, I think, being that he took the time out to shout us, to at least point people in the direction of his new project. I had listened to some of it, and it's cool. It's very, very different, but it's maintains that high caliber. He's obviously a skilled guy, so you can hear that in the new sounds. Yeah,
cool. So yeah, if you want to interact with us again, you can drop a comment on whatever platform you're listening to this on, if it has the ability, and we will read it. Instagram us, or just send us an old school fuddy-duddy email, feedback@intheukgarage.com. If you still use email, it probably sounds like fax to you now if you're some sort of Zoomer or whatever it is. I think we're good there, mate. Thanks again, as always, for spending time with me, mate.
It's always a pleasure. Do you know what? It makes me sound really sad, but it's one of the highlights of my month. And I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass saying that, man. I do, I love garage. I love listening to the new stuff, and what's better than that?
Hey, I got
no alcohol involved this month, mind you.
I was drinking solid coffee, mate. Yeah, it was keeping it fresh, I guess. I don't know. It's great to catch up as always, mate. And I guess the next one's going to be the Christmas special.
I was going to say we need to highlight for our loyal listener base here that we will be back in a few weeks' time with a special festive edition. So don't rule us out in the run up to Christmas. I know you're all busy getting plans sorted, but we'll have something special lined up.
Yeah, we don't know what that is yet, but it's going to be good, right? We got some ideas.
Well, I'm just praying that you don't let me down like you did on Halloween. Like, as long as you're dressed accordingly, or we have something festive visual-wise going on. Otherwise, the YouTube channel is going to be screaming, man.
I say you'll get at least a Santa hat. I can definitely promise you that, mate.
I can live with that.
Cool. All right. Well, I guess I'll catch you next time then.
Indeed, mate.
Big up. Thanks for listening. And until then.
Later on.
You get me? In the garage with Phonetix and BrainZ.